Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Your Pleasure Incorporated into Daily Living. I'm your host, Ellen Nicholas Rathbone, sensuality consultant, and a real protagonist for the human race and its ability to experience all of the wonderful pleasures that are inherent in our body. Although we may be looking for pleasure on the outside of our world or on the outside of our body, I should say, much of the pleasure is in the body. So today, I want to tell you a little story. This is a true story about the fact that orgasm begins in the mind. And it's always connected to the smell, the memory, and the ideas that are exciting to that individual person. So what might excite one person would do absolutely nothing for someone else because they just don't have those experiences. So I'm going to read most of this because it's a story that I've written and I don't want to leave anything out, but believe me, it is a true story and it is my pleasure to share it with you. So this couple met in the second year at Rutgers. And she was pledging a sorority on the second floor of a house. And the fellow that she met was a brother in a fraternity on the first floor of the house. And there was an instant attraction between the two of them. She liked his boyish charm. He reminded her of her first crush during her teenage years. And he had a look and an energy that wasn't threatening. It was very easygoing and fun. Absolutely someone she believed that she could get together with and have a lot of good times with. And he dug her because she was a natural, striking beauty, dark, curly, wild hair, piercing eyes, and an intellect to match. So if she was willing to give this guy a go, he'd be crazy not to take it. Anyway, he was the treasurer of his fraternity, and every year his fraternity rented a hotel down in Bradley Beach. So since he was the treasurer, it fell to him to take a ride down to the summer house and give the deposit to the owner of the hotel that the fraternity would be renting for the entire summer. It was an old-fashioned kind of a hotel with all sorts of proper sitting on the porch and a full commercial kitchen, a huge dining room. Two chapters of brothers from both Rutgers Newark and NJIT were going to be renting rooms. And this guy asked the girl if she wanted to go down for the ride to give the guy the money. So she accepted. She liked him very much. So they took Route 280 and they got onto the Garden State Parkway. And as soon as they were cruising down the parkway, they were listening to the rock and roll and singing along with everything. And they were just enjoying each other's company tremendously. So she gazed out the window as they sped down the parkway, and everything seemed so absolutely perfect. It was a perfect day, nice weather, no traffic, and an opportunity to get frisky when they got down there since they had an entire hotel to themselves. About 6 miles down on the highway, the fellow asked the girl if she would sit a little closer to him. Like, why was she sitting so far away? So she had no problem sitting closer to him, and she scooted over, and he put his arm around her, and his hand kind of rested between her breasts. And so, while he's driving, the windows were open, but, he could definitely get a sense of her scent, and she could get a sense of his scent. So that was kind of exciting to both of them. And he draped his arm around her, and he was wearing one of her favorite colognes. Again, a memory triggered by a cologne that brings up positive feelings and exciting feelings from her past. He was driving, so she didn't want to distract him too much, but she couldn't stop stroking his strong, well-defined forearm. It was obvious that he was a ball player. That forearm was very, very well defined, and the other one was on the steering wheel. His arm reflected its strength and its long, sinewy muscles that shifted and twitched as he was driving. Soon, her petting his arm became a longer, slower stroke. Like she was just really enjoying the sense of his arm. And that's really all she was doing. There was no genitals being touched at this point. Funny though, the more she stroked him, the hornier she got. Blood was flowing to her labia, and she instinctually pressed her thighs together for some relief. The hair on his arms was golden and soft and full, and the longer she stroked his arm, the more excited she got. Her strokes got slower. All the while, she didn't say a word or utter a sound. They had been singing, that stopped. All that stopped as her focus was on the feel of his arm and the story that was being conjured up in her imagination about that arm. Each stroke sent a tingle down to her nether areas, and in response, soon she started doing long, intense, slow, internal Kegel squeezes. Now, for anyone who doesn't remember, Kegels are the squeezing of the PC muscle, and they are an excellent way to excite the vaginal walls, to get the blood flowing to the G-spot and to the clitoris. And it's sort of an instinctual thing that when you're kind of getting excited, that would be the part of your body that you would stroke or you would squeeze the most. After all, they had an hour drive to the beach from Newark, and they may as well enjoy the ride. And believe me, she did. 3/4 of the way down the Garden State Parkway, her strokes had filled her clitoris and her G-spot with lots of blood. And the all-important ingredient needed to pump the walls was the blood, and to create an appropriate amount of tension that needs to be released. Within minutes, the sight, smell, and touch of his arm was so exciting. She came while kegling. The crescendo was explosive. 1 second, she was stroking and focusing on his arm, legs squeezing together, and then hips thrusting upward, eyes rolling back, shudders from her head to the feet. When it was all over, he looked at her again, and this is while he's driving at 65 miles an hour. This time, he's in total disbelief. "Did you just come?" he said to her. She couldn't verbally answer. She just nodded her head and kept as still as possible, not sure if another orgasm was waiting to well up again. It didn't. Did he come? No, he was driving. Now, the point of this is that there was no sexual genitals involved in this. There was imagination, there was scent, there was blood flowing, the mind was excited, and because the mind was excited, it sent a torrent of blood rushing to the genitals to excite them so that an orgasm would ensue. And so that is the power of the mind. It's not necessary all the time, even though it is a lot more fun, or it could be a lot more sensational when you use more of your senses to appreciate another person's body, touching, etc. But the mind is very, very powerful. And if you allow yourself a little bit of creative imagination, and if you want to be able to develop that in your life, then give yourself that freedom of expression. And don't be afraid of the power and potential of pleasure within your body. We all have it, and we shouldn't rely on artificial means all the time. I talk about this stuff because I can see our world heading in a very A1 direction where we are becoming more and more like automatons, as if the pleasure potential is not important. It really is. It's the thing that separates humans from all other species. We don't just have sex just to make babies. We have sex because it's a beautiful part of being close to someone else and enjoying that person. So, do you have that pleasure potential? I definitely think you do. Are you willing to unlock it? That's a question you have to ask yourself. I'm so happy that you joined me for this episode of Your Pleasure Incorporated into Daily Living. I hope that you will join me again next week when we have another fun topic on the pleasure potential. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you found that this was a good topic, please share this and like this show with anyone that you think would be interested. Please make sure that they are adults. This is adult conversation. This is not for children, okay? So I prefer 21 and over because those are adults who need to know about their pleasure potential. Keep it away from kids. Thank you so much for your time. See you again next week for another episode. Bye for now and namaste. Do your Kegels. They'll pay.